My name is Wadi Ahmed Emenanjo. I was born in November 21st, 1974 to a Marxist father and to a practicing Christian mother who was a religious malcontent. And after they graduated from college and got their careers going, my father a pharmacist, my mother a registered nurse, he told her, quoting Karl Marx, religion is the opium of the poor, and we are not poor, so therefore we don't need religion. So therefore she then quit practicing religion, but she still made sure that me and my brothers, we had a religious background and education. I started off in Chicago at St. Peter and Paul Catholic School. And then because the tuition was cheaper, then I went from there to St. John's Lutheran School. And they gave what you would expect from a religious school where the Bible was treated and was given reference as a legitimate part of the curriculum. So therefore I learned more about the Bible than the average elementary school child. And there were two things which wound up leading me to starting to distrust the Bible. The first instance was there was this African American bookstore that was Afrocentric / Pan-Africanist / Black nationalist. It was called The Shrine of the Black Madonna. And there was this one book in there which I begged my mother to get. The name of the book was called What Color Was Jesus? So the thesis of this book essentially was that the color of Jesus was that he was black. So it wound up mentioning that people had played with the translations of the Bible, such as not translating certain words correctly, and also not mentioning what a river's true name in modern times is now, so that way the reader would be aware, like they mentioned that, like the river of Gihon or something that's mentioned in the Bible actually is the river Nile, showing that the Garden of Eden was in Africa and not in the Middle East. So therefore this let me know that the Bible, I guess, could be tampered with, so that way a person could have their own interpretations of what they think that the scripture should say. And then the second such event was, there was towards the exit of my elementary school, there was this one Bible that I thought it looked really nice, like it had very nice artwork on it. It had like a picture of Jesus as a shepherd, where he's at this mountain and he's collecting this lost sheep into his arms, and it was very nice. So one day I took me this book, this Bible for myself, the Good News Translation, which is what the Lutherans prefer. So therefore, as soon as I got home and started to open it up and read it, then one thing that I noticed that this is the case for every Good News Bible, is that there's a timeline at the beginning of each of them. And this timeline takes you like from, like when Martin Luther nailed his theses on the church door, all the way to the creation of the universe, which they put around like 4140 or something like that BCE. And with me and my brothers being lovers of science and lovers of watching PBS, we knew from reading books on dinosaurs and prehistoric mammals that the last dinosaur died 65 million years ago. So therefore, that alone saying the universe was created 6,000 years ago versus the last dinosaur dying 65 million years ago is problematic. So these two events led me to, I guess, go to my fifth/sixth grade teacher on a daily basis and ask him various questions about the Bible. It was like every day. It was just like the more I read of the Bible, then the more I was questioning its teachings and its authenticity, questioning the Trinity. So I remember one time I went to my mother as we were about to have dinner, and I said, if Jesus is God and God the Father is God, then why didn't God the Father come down from heaven and die on the cross himself? And then she was like, don't be stupid. God can't die. And then at first I was feeling ashamed, right? And I was like, yeah, that was a stupid question. Then I thought about it later as I was in my room about to go to bed. And then I was like, no, that wasn't so stupid. Okay, if God can't die and Jesus is God, then how can he die? So then I just refrained from asking her any more questions because she was really upset about that. So I continued to play along until around the age of 17 when I was about to have my confirmation in the Catholic Church. And the last night of this retreat that we had, which was before our official confirmation, we were told to close our eyes instead of blindfolding us, and we all held hands, and they took us through the woods. And at the end of this journey through the woods, this was at St. Mary's Catholic Church, by the way, in Houston. So once we got to the end of this journey in the woods, then we were told to open our eyes, and then surrounded by candles was this picture of this Europeanized, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus. Then all of a sudden, everybody in my confirmation class, they just bust out and started crying. And then I thought to myself, what is wrong with these people? And then when we got back to camp, then one of the Sunday school teachers was like, are you okay? And then I was like, yeah, I'm all right. I was just trying to figure out what was wrong with everybody else. So then it was like at that exact moment while I was eating, they had made nachos for everybody and like had this real nice Velveeta cheese that they melted with ground beef and stuff like that. And as I was enjoying my nachos, I was thinking to myself, I can't do this anymore. I cannot play this Christian game anymore. So therefore, after I had my confirmation and I was an adult in the Catholic Church, then one Sunday morning, my mother was like, time to get up and go to church. And I was like, I'm not going. Now that I'm an adult in the Catholic Church and I can make my own decision as an adult, I'm no longer going to go again to church. And then she's like, well, you are an adult, so therefore I can't make you go. And then my brothers was like, well, if he ain't going, we ain't going. So that was our last time going to church. Since an agnostic is one who is not sure that there's a God, where they're not affirming nor are they denying, in hindsight, I would have to say I'm something other than that. I would have to say the word would be theist, I suppose. I was confident there was a God because I believed it was illogical for there not to be a God. I think it went against the principles of science for there to be effect with no cause. It's completely ridiculous to think that the universe came out of thin air like some kind of rabbit being pulled out of a hat. So I just knew that Judeo-Christianity was not correct. So therefore I didn't practice it. And not only did I throw off the shackles of the religion of my youth, but I also more or less at this time around 17 threw off the yoke of everything I was taught, such as I more or less had like a moment of clarity, like the alcoholics say, having an epiphany. I was riding on the metro bus in Houston, and I was thinking to myself, why do I hate white people? I've never had a physical fight in reality with a white person. No white person is from what I could remember, done anything truly wicked to me on an individual level. Maybe a group of engaged in oppression and tried to undermine my well-being, but not the individual. The only people that I had troubles with in black suburbia were the African Americans. It wasn't African Americans who stole things that belonged to me. It wasn't, or rather, it was African Americans who stole my belongings. It was African Americans who I had fights with. It was African Americans who were, I guess you could say, prejudiced towards me because I was of Nigerian origin. Even though we were all black, I guess you could say they engaged in ethnocentricity. So therefore, there was no reason I should say all white people are evil and all black people are angelic, which I knew definitely wasn't the truth. So I ceased being an Afrocentric individual slash Pan-Africanist, even though I still to this day I believe that African Americans should, as a group, practice nationalism for their own economic security as other groups do. But other than that, then engage in ethnocentrism and racism, then I'm completely against that, and I abandoned it at that moment. So during this time of just being a theist and without having religion, then at this time, after leaving high school and then going to Guthrie Job Corps in Oklahoma, I did a lot of reflecting during this time, in addition to engaging in things that I only did on a minor scale back at home in Houston. There's something had came about while I was there in Oklahoma that made me want to cling to spirituality, but I didn't have any refuge because I knew the Bible was not a source that I could turn to, but I did anyway just because I didn't know where else to go to. And then this led me to just saying, I'm going to read the Bible from cover to cover. And so this probably helped solidify where I was right before, that the Bible is a corrupted text. Just from reading just Genesis alone, then it made me feel the Bible as mythology, such as reading about the Nephilim, which is translated as the sons of God, the giants that are that were upon the earth from the angels having sex with human women. And I was like, what in the world? And then as I read further, but even before that, with just the beginning verses of Genesis, then I was reading stuff like the sun was created on the third day and vegetation was created before that on the second day, which made no sense. Why would the vegetation source of energy be created after it? That made absolutely no sense. But anyway, and just certain things where I was like, there's no way, like I was right before, there's no way of God could have written particular parts, or at least it was corrupted, I would say. like the parts that are dealing with the law in Leviticus, where it's like you can charge interest, don't charge interest to your brother Jew, but you can charge interest to the Goyim, the non-Jew. You can't sell roadkill to your brother Jew or eat it, but it's okay for you to sell it to a Goyim. So if we, with refrigeration and sophisticated grilling and stuff like that, it's dangerous for us now in this day and time to eat roadkill, then how much more 5,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago was it for people to be eating roadkill? Without a doubt, they more than likely would get sick and die. So I was like, that combined with other verses like in Joshua saying, leave nothing alive in that village. If it's a cockroach crawling around, kill it. Babies, animals, all that being killed. So it only seemed that the Creator was only concerned with the Jew and could care less about the Goyim. So I was like, that definitely didn't seem like something God would do. It definitely seemed that a particular group who had the book was changing it at the very least, if not it being completely made up. So the more I read, then the more I was solidified that I made the right choice by abandoning the religion. But I still enjoyed, I guess, reading that mythology, if you will, just as I enjoy reading the mythology surrounding Hercules or Theseus and the Minotaur. So, during this period, I guess it was fun, I guess you could say, where I was able to think intellectually and I guess be my own man without having a religion. When I was going into the Navy, I enjoyed, I guess, engaging in the same games that sailors engage in. So I was not looking for a religion. I was fine being without one. And when I got married, and even though my wife was non-practicing every now and then, once we moved to Virginia, since that being part of the Bible Belt, we were always confronted with evangelical Christians. In fact, Virginia is a stronghold and where the 700 Club is apparently filmed. So therefore, Pat Robertson is essentially the ruler of that area. And nothing goes on without his say-so. It's a very strict area. So many times, like one time she came from work when she was working at IHOP. And she was like, a friend of hers, a customer of hers actually, was telling her about speaking in tongues and stuff like that, and advising her how she could go about receiving the gift of tongues and stuff like that. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I was like, speaking in tongues is not saying mama seku mamaku makusa or whatever. It is strictly told in the book of Acts that it is a universal language. Which means, so because in Acts it was mentioning when Peter was, after the apostles received the gift of tongues, then Peter went in the middle of Jerusalem and started spreading the gospel. And there was, as it was recorded, it's like a man from China there, and there was an Arab there, and there were people of different ethnicities there. And Peter was speaking in tongues. And the Arab, he heard Arabic in his ear when he heard Peter speaking. The Chinese person heard Chinese or Mandarin when he heard Peter speaking. So they were amazed. They were like, this man is a Jew, but he is speaking my language. So therefore, she went back with that information to her regular customer, and her regular customer said, your husband is the devil, rather than showing her the proof that speaking gibberish is talking in tongues. So I guess so more or less I was trying to help, you could say, people during this time of just being a theist to free themselves from the slavery of the ignorance, which is the Christian religion. When I was in Great Lakes, Illinois, and after I completed boot camp, then I went directly across the street to Service School Command, which is where I was assigned to go learn my particular trade in the Navy, which is a rate. And my rate was GSM, Gas Turbine Systems Technician Mechanical. So once I was in this school and I was learning, then of course I befriended fellow gentlemen who are in my barracks, and there were a group of people in my barracks who are my drinking buddies, who I went to the railroad tracks with. After we would go to the liquor store, then we would go to the railroad tracks like winos, and then we would drink and talk or whatever. And there was one particular drinking buddy of mine, Tonto, who was an aspiring rapper. Why he chose the name of Tonto, I don't know, because he was African American and he didn't appear to be part Native American, even though many African Americans believe they are part Native American. So one day he came to us and he was like, he was a Muslim. And we were like, yeah, right, and started laughing because when we pictured a Muslim, we pictured Malcolm X, and we did not feel he was the Malcolm X type. But as time went on, just in a short period of time, he showed that Islam completely transformed him, or was transforming him. Like, he had a girlfriend, and this girlfriend, he quit her like maybe a week or two after his conversion. Maybe 3 months later, he showed me a picture of a young lady who he said was overseas, who was going to be his wife. And I was like, wow, this cat is serious. So one day we were in a smoking gazebo, which was in the middle of the barracks. And we got to talking about religion. Like, we talked about it like maybe for an hour, and I just wanted to know why he converted. And so he explained why, and then at the end of our discussion, he mentioned that he had purchased another Quran, so therefore did I want to read and have even the Quran that he was given when he converted. So I was like, sure, I'll check it out. And so he showed me that there was like an index in the back where you could, see, read various things that were in the Quran. So that's what I did. In over a year's time, I read the Quran, and I would take it with me when I went to Chicago every weekend from Great Lakes to visit my father, who was still presiding in Chicago after my parents' divorce. So I would start in the index, I would see the name Jesus, and then I would look up all of the various passages that were dealing with Jesus, and then I would see Moses, and then I would read the various passages about Moses in the Quran. And then I would see Adam and Eve. Then I would read about what the Quran said about Adam and Eve. And then when I truly started to believe and just be captivated where I wanted to read more and more was when I just said I'm going to read from the beginning, all the ways to the, from cover to cover. And even though I was still reading at this time to try to find fault with the Quran, because like say if a person opens up the Book of Mormon, it doesn't take long to be like, that's bullcorn, that's completely historically inaccurate and goes against common sense right away. But with the Quran, I was not finding that. And like even like my stepbrother, he was in the Nation of Islam. So even though that's of course not Islam, but I was looking for, like I said, fault. So the only thing I could find that I even thought, I was like, aha, it was like, it mentions that you shouldn't divide the religion. And I was like, aha, see, there's different kinds of Muslims. So what do you got to say about that? And then my stepbrother was like, well, nobody's perfect. I mean, that doesn't say anything against the Quran and saying that the men have went away from what's being taught in it. And I was like, yeah, well, that's true. So when I started to read chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, which means the cow, what was captivating me about that particular chapter was like what the Quran said about the characteristic of the hypocrite. And it mentioned about that all of the messengers and prophets, they were all Muslim, that they all came with the same message, Urbudullah, worship Allah, and do not follow Atagut, which is like false idols or false gods, that you should refrain from that. And that was the message of all of the prophets. And it also mentions that the Jews and the Christians believe in order to go to heaven that you got to be what they're upon, but they could be given a chance to find that for 1,000 years in their own book, and they wouldn't be able to find it. So Allah mentions in the Quran that the prophet Abraham, he was not a Jew or a Christian. He was before that, and that he was a Muslim. He was upon the pure religion, the Hanif, which is just one who singles out their worship for the one and true God. And that was his mission to his people, and that was his beliefs, and that was what he was upon. So therefore, it made perfect sense that they all came with that same message, and it did. So then it made me want to read more and more, where it clarified all of the things which were in error concerning the Bible, and where there was confusion, it eliminated that confusion. So I just, like I said, I kept reading it over a year's time, and after I had came back from my diplomatic cruise that I went on for 3 months, which is called Baltops or Baltic Operations, where we went to like England and Germany and France and stuff like that. So once I came back, then I told myself I want to become a Muslim. And then for a split second, I was thinking, you got to give up a lot to be a Muslim. So therefore, I was like, well, maybe I'll wait till I'm like older, like 50 or something, to become a Muslim. But then I thought to myself, well, what if I don't live to be 50? So therefore, the next day, I had went to try to track down the chaplain that was Muslim at the Naval Station Norfolk. So I was finally directed to the building where all of the various religions had, the chaplains had their offices at. So I was directed to the Muslim chaplain's office, and then I went to the office, and then I met Chaplain Noel, and then I had told him I would like to become a Muslim. And so Chaplain Noel asked me why I wanted to become one, and then I had kind of, explained to him, what I thought. Then he asked me a little bit about the Quran, then I was like, well, it's something, I guess you could say, like the last testament. Then he was like, well, it is the last revelation, but one shouldn't really per se think of it like it is part of the Bible or something. And then you got Old, New, and then Last Testament like that. He said you shouldn't think that, but it is the last revelation that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. So I was like, okay. And any other misconceptions I might have had, he clarified it. Or sought to clarify it. So then he was like, do you still wish to be a Muslim? So then I was like, yes, I want to be a Muslim. So he was of the opinion you needed 2 witnesses to become a Muslim. So therefore he was like, we need to see if we can find a second witness for you in the Muslim prayer area. So we went upstairs to the Muslim prayer area, and there was a brother who was in there praying. So after he was finished praying, he asked him, would he want to be the second witness? And right before I was about to take my shahada and become a Muslim, then I had got a call from my wife, who we were estranged at the time. She was bringing my son to me on base. So then I went downstairs, and then I grabbed my son and took him with me back upstairs to the Muslim prayer area, and then proceeded to say my 2 declarations of faith, or the Shahadatain, which is to say there's no God who is, I bear witness that there's no God who's worthy of worship except for Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And then afterwards, I guess I didn't know necessarily how to feel. Like I didn't know if I was supposed to have a magical tingling in me after becoming a Muslim, but finally arriving at what is true. But I did not. But as time has went on, I have had periods where I was like, I will cry just because I'm like, I am upon this truth, and there'll be certain remembrances where I could still be upon ignorance and lost. After my conversion, maybe like 2 weeks later, on my ship, the USS Cape St. George CG-71, they were serving fried pork chops, and they were also had these chicken patties. And macaroni and cheese was being served as a side dish. And so at this point, I wasn't ever planning on like just running out and saying, hey, I'm a Muslim. But it just so happened that I had to, that was my time where I was going to have to declare it, whether I wanted to or not. Like one gentleman, I believe it was my shipmate Smokey, who was like, hey, what's up, Nwadiei? How come you eating them chicken patties? These pork chops is good than a mug. How come you ain't eating them? You need to get on them. What's up, you Muslim? And then I cracked a smile, and then I was like, yes, I'm Muslim. Then he was like, stop playing. And I was like, nah, about 2 weeks ago, I became a Muslim. And then that time on, for about like 30 days, I was engaged in religious debate all day, every day. And I think, I mean, like the people on my ship, they were like some of the worst human beings upon the face of the earth. They were drunkards. They were adulterers. They were whoremongers. They were any other bad adjective you can think of. That's what my fellow sailors were. Of course, everybody knows sailors had to follow some miles. That's why you got the term cuss like a sailor. So I think the reason why they were so offended by my conversion was people are taught in Christianity that you can do all manner of wickedness essentially, and you'll still be allowed to tiptoe your way right into heaven after having a miserable, horrible, wicked existence upon the earth. Then you're just going to be given free reign to walk into heaven without any punishment for your deeds upon the earth. So therefore, that's all I could figure, that they really believe that they can do what they're doing, and then God is going to say, oh yeah, because you believe in something completely ridiculous, such as the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus, that you're going to be allowed to come into heaven. So after this rough month, then more or less, then people kind of like stay out of my way, I guess. And people who I guess I used to, hang out with on a regular basis, and who I would go drink with or whatever socially, or go to the club with, then that slowed down to the point where it came to a screeching halt. And I think that was more or less like a mercy from God, because it was like they could have been like, let's try to bring him down with us. But instead they're like, well, he's no longer drinking or whatever, doing this and that as we're doing. So why would we bring him in there? Like, so therefore my friends like Ephesus Hopkins and Jamarcus Collins, they just backed off and allowed me to grow spiritually. And I love them for that till this day, and I really appreciate that, rather than them trying to bring me in their direction. As the years went on, because I didn't have an Islamic community, and whenever I would go to see Chaplain Noel to get more information, it always seemed that Muslims in the Navy were having problems, or in the Marines or whatever as well, were having problems. So he was always busy and gone. So therefore for 2 years I was like ignorant of the religion. And I was given a prayer chart to pray, but it was like for those 2 years, then I was reading slow off of the chart as it appeared, with transliterated Arabic into Roman/English script. So then later Allah sent a brother to keep me company that's a fellow Muslim, because I was there essentially by myself, other than with people who were in pseudo-Islamic groups. Like before Peter Bourne came on the ship, there was a gentleman who was part of a heretical Muslim sect called the 19ers, where they believe that if you put the Quran in a computer, then it'll come up with the number 19, which proved that it was divine, and they reject the prophetic traditions. So and even though I never bought what that group believed in, but when I would hang around this individual, I would find myself mimicking some of his speech sometimes. And my downstairs neighbor, where I had my apartment out in town, he was a 5%er from Sacramento, California. And even though, of course, I completely rejected what the 5%ers, a Nation of God and Earth taught, sometimes I would find myself mimicking some of his speech. But with Allah sending me a Muslim who had took his Shahada around the same time as I did, then at least I had somebody to keep me company, somebody who I could talk about Islam with that was an actual Muslim, other than the other pseudo-Islamic gentleman that I was with before. So even though he took his Shahada at the same time as me, we were both equally ignorant, but we were able to study together. And in fact, as he was reading one day in the Quran English translation, when we had went on our 6-month deployment, he read that the Quran forbid the drinking of alcohol. So then he had asked me, well, what do you think we should do? So I was like, well, let's just say tomorrow we'll get some drinks, and that'll be the last time we'll ever drink. So we were in Cannes, France at the time, and this was 1998, and the French, I think, were playing against Brazil in the World Cup or whatever in a semifinal. So we both went out in town, and we both had one can of Heineken apiece, and that was our last drink. And after we finished that last drink and came out of the bar, then it was people were running through the streets talking about "Vive la France" because they had defeated Brazil, or whoever, I believe it was Brazil. So then the whole country was going crazy, and it was like I had never seen nothing like that before in my life. So I even felt like, even though we Muslims don't believe in omens, it felt like that was a celebration for us. Having abandoned something that was truly wicked, that's the mother of sins, which is drinking. So maybe like a year after this, like towards my last 4 months on my ship before getting out of the Navy, Allah sent me this gentleman by the name of Ali Hassan to the ship, who he had been at this point. I was a Muslim for 2 years, and Peter had been a Muslim for 2 years, but this gentleman had been a Muslim for 5 years at this time, but he had an Islamic community, and he was very studious, so he was like light years ahead, it seemed, of us, and he introduced me to this booklet called the 40 Hadith, which is a book which is recommended for new Muslims, which has prophetic traditions that more or less one could sit the religion of Islam upon, that give you a good grasp of what Islam is. So, and then he took us to the Norfolk Masjid. So therefore, me and Peter were introduced to our first Islamic community. And then this gave me a good foundation for the rest of my time being a Muslim, almost 2 decades later. And I think everything that has ever happened to me, including that time then, was setting me up to be the best Muslim I can be, and it's definitely been a mercy that certain things which could have been an obstacle in my way of being a Muslim and being able to practice it to the fullest of my capacity, then these things have been removed, and God has really made this religion easy for me to hold on to in a time when holding on to the religion of Islam is like holding on to hot coals.